Alright guys, so we are still waiting here on trailer 3 for GTA 6, and obviously there has been nothing yet, but even with the game still months out, we're already hearing chatter about stuff that got cut before it even launches. So, whether that stuff shows up later in RP servers or mods, who knows, but that's a different conversation. So a guy named Dandy Andy, who I have not talked about before, but pretty much, this guy, he dropped a video digging into supposedly cut features from GTA 6, and I wanted it to break it down with you guys because honestly, this whole topic is a mess of a secondhand info. So before we get into the list, let's talk about how this stuff actually spreads. So pretty much, if you spend any time in GTA 6, corners of the internet, whether that be on YouTube or Reddit or whatever, you already know the pattern. Someone claiming insider knowledge posts a screenshot or a source told me tweet, outlets scoop it up, and suddenly it's a headline that sticks around for months. And obviously, I check GTA 6 news daily, and a few weeks after pre-orders opened, the GTA 6 subreddit had something like 15 separate posts from all people, all claiming to be ex-Rockstar developers with inside info on the story. Maybe one of them was telling the truth, but there's no way to know, and most of it obviously traces back to the same recycled leaks. So today we're getting into negative leaks and the stuff people think Rockstar cut before shipping the game. So the reason we even suspect cuts is because of the 2022 leaks, which gave us a baseline of what was being tested. So from there, people speculate about hurricanes, dual wielding, a revamped cover system, using your radio outside the car, and prone movement. And none of this is obviously confirmed by Rockstar. They've barely said a word about actual gameplay, which honestly is kind of wild if you think about it. Two trailers, tons of screenshots, job listings, leaked footage from 2022 that Rockstar itself confirmed was real, and we still know basically nothing about how the game plays. So first up, dynamic weather. The hurricane and tornado rumor traces back to a real Rockstar New England job listing for a VFX artist. And the posting mentioned wanting to immerse players with ambient effects like bugs and rains, and it also referenced large scale destruction events like skyscrapers crashing to the ground, and that is a real line from Rockstar, but it never mentioned hurricanes, tornadoes, or Florida specifically. So a fan account speculated that Rockstar wanted hurricanes and tornadoes but didn't know why they'd supposedly been cut. And that single tweet became the source for basically every hurricane cut article that followed. My honest guess is we'll get a big story tied weather event rather than a fully dynamic simulated storm system. And pretty much trailer 2 already showed a bar called Hurricane Roxy, and the original Vice City had a tropical storm locking off bridges, so there's precedent. Full dynamic hurricanes though, probably not. But next we have is dual wielding. So frame by frame analysis of the 2022 leak footage shows the weapon wheel and HUD changed across different builds, with early versions appearing to have slots for a weapon in each hand before that setup disappeared in a later build. That's not confirmation of a working dual wield mechanic, just an early UI element that got removed. The claim that it was fully cut comes from a leaker called Gameroll. And who has earned some credibility since he correctly named Juice Jason and Lucia's last names before Rockstar posted them. But Gameroll himself has said publicly that his source is a friend of a Rockstar developer, not someone directly inside the studio, so there's still room for things to get lost in translation. Then we also have the cover system. Leaked footage shows a fluid animation driven cover mechanic that looked a lot like The Last of Us Part 2, with characters leaning and shifting, around corners instead of GTA 5's rigid snap to cover. Gameroll claims that system got scrapped for something more traditional, closer to RDR2. Even if that's true, I'd expect whatever replaces it still to be a noticeable upgrade over GTA 5, just maybe not as fluid as what leaked. Radio outside the car is probably the flimsiest rumor of the bunch. There is no leaked footage actually showing a worked exterior radio feature that then gets removed. It's just a claim repeated across a few outlets, considering the trailers lean hard into diegetic sound, earbuds and smartphone integration, and Rockstar's lined up major music talent for the soundtrack. It would be strange if they didn't want you hearing music outside your car in some form. But, other than that, and finally, we have a prone movement, which honestly stings the most for me because the 2022 leaks do show Jason transitioning between standing, crouching, and prone. And there is a debug menu listing animation states like prone, crouch, cover, and self-revive, so this mechanic clearly existed in some form during development. Whether it survives into the final game is the real question, and once again, it is Gameroll saying it got cut. So here is the bigger takeaway. Almost every one of these claims traces back to secondhand info or an old job listing, a single tweet, or one leaker saying what a friend of a friend supposedly heard. None of it comes directly from Rockstar, so take it all with a healthy amount of salt. These things could easily still be in the game in some form. We just won't know until Rockstar actually shows us, and with trailer 3 still not here, that wait will pretty much just continue. So let me know in the comments which of these you'd be bummed or most bummed to lose, and I will see you guys in the next one.